When I saw the post, my heart didn't break. It crumpled like a receipt I'd been saving too long. There he was. My boyfriend of nearly 5 years, grinning like a kid in a candy shop, arms slung around his ex-girlfriend, captioned. Finally free from the needy drama queen and her constant whining. Cheers to freedom! At that moment, I was lying in a hospital bed, doped up on oxy, with a metal rod in my leg and a bouquet of get-well-soon balloons slowly deflating beside me. What happened next shocked everyone and changed my life forever. Let me rewind. My name's Lisa, I'm 31, and I just learned how quickly someone can throw away 5 years over a caption. I met Brad at a corporate-sponsored community cleanup back in 2020. He called himself the Worm Prince, because he led the compost team. I should have run then. But no, my houseplant-loving, metaphor-thirsty heart latched onto his speech about decay being nature's way of starting fresh. Gag. I know. Fast forward 4.5 years. The only thing decomposing was my dignity. Brad had helped with rent exactly 6 times since we moved in together. I know that because I have receipts. He couldn't get on the lease, something about temporary credit issues, so it was all in my name. At least half the time, he was between jobs. When he was employed, the money disappeared into vape mods, overpriced sneakers, and nights out, networking, with his boys. He borrowed my car more than he asked how my recovery was going. But of course, I excused it all. Love makes you delusional. I kept telling myself he had potential. That he was just figuring things out. Then came the accident. A distracted driver ran a red light and plowed into my passenger side at an intersection by Mayfield and 8th. I ended up with a fractured femur, 2 cracked ribs, and a mild concussion. The doctor said I was lucky. Didn't feel that way with titanium drilled into my leg. Brad visited me once. For 17 minutes. He sat stiff in the corner chair, mask half on, mumbling that hospitals triggered his anxiety. Then he left to process everything emotionally. I wish I were joking. Thank God for my best friend Zoe. She stayed with me 3 nights in that godawful room, helped me use the portable toilet, brought me actual food, even washed my hair in the sink. She's the one who saw it first. We were scrolling through her feed, trying to distract me from the phone beeping, when she went pale. I didn't even ask, just grabbed the phone from her hand. There it was. That photo. Him and Lauren, his high school ex, cozy at some rooftop bar like they were celebrating the signing of a peace treaty. Captioned. Finally free. I didn't cry. I didn't even speak. I just stared. Then something inside me flipped. He posted that while I was learning to walk again. Wanna know the kicker? The comments were full of our friends. You look so happy, bro. You deserve better. New chapter. Not a single one said, wait, isn't your girlfriend in the hospital with a broken leg? I didn't comment. I didn't call. I just made a plan. Because Brad didn't know one important thing. Only my name was on the lease. After 4 days at the hospital, I moved in temporarily with Zoe while I recovered. Crutches, pain meds, and a gnawing hole where love used to be. Meanwhile, Brad was living his best life, posting espresso martinis and playlists like he was some kind of heartbreak guru. He had no idea what was coming. I started with the landlord. Mr. Gilroy is the type of guy who wears socks with sandals and keeps a model train set in his office, but he's old school loyal. I told him everything, about the lease, the rent Brad hadn't paid in 3 months, and the Instagram post. He didn't just sympathize, he helped me change the locks. Then I called my cousin Marco and my brother Jeremy. Together, we planned the purge. On Saturday morning, they pulled up in a pickup truck with moving boxes, gloves, and trash bags. We cleared the apartment in 4 hours flat. Every pair of Brad's mismatched socks. Every collector's Funko Pop still in its original box. His triple monitor gaming setup with RGB lighting that made the living room look like a rave. The signed baseball cards, the craft beer he swore was aging like wine, even his nasty scented candles labeled things like Midnight asphalt. All of it? Gone. Well, not gone. Relocated. Straight to the dumpster behind the apartment building. Not the recycling bin. Not the donation pile. The dumpster. Let him start fresh with the garbage, just like his Instagram caption suggested. Some might say that was harsh. But Brad hadn't paid a dime toward rent since February. The only reason we hadn't been evicted was because I'd been picking up freelance gigs on my laptop between physical therapy sessions and migraines. Oh, and here's the kicker. You want to know what Brad was doing instead of checking on me in the hospital? Interviewing. For a job I got him. At a boutique marketing firm where the hiring manager happens to be the older brother of my college roommate. I'd put in a good word for him weeks earlier. Because, yes, I was still helping him, even after all he'd taken from me. So I sent that same hiring manager a follow-up email, along with screenshots of the party posts, Brad's rental history, and some spicy texts where he bragged to his friends about finessing the bills and living rent-free with Nurse Ratched. Guess who isn't starting that job next Monday? By Sunday morning, my phone was blowing up like a fire alarm. Dozens of texts from Brad. Where's my stuff? You can't do this. Everything I own was in that apartment. My collectibles are worth thousands. Then came the pivot. Babe, I'm sorry. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. Lauren and I just ran into each other. I miss you. We can fix this. I swear. But the best part. The messages from his mom. Carla. The woman who once told me, "You're lucky my son gave you a chance. He's very selective." She called crying, saying I was being cruel. That I'd ruined his life over one mistake. That he told her I cost him the job out of spite. She asked me to consider how much he's been through. I almost laughed. What he's been through? Let me tell you what I'd been through. 3 surgeries, a titanium pin in my leg, $8,000 in medical bills, and a boyfriend who ghosted me like I was a bill collector. Carla begged me to give him another chance. Then, in the same breath, she said, "But did you really have to trash his gaming chair? He loved that throne." I didn't trash it. My brother ceremoniously carried that throne like it was the Ark of the Covenant, and dropped it into the dumpster with a smile. The throne is dead. Long live the Queen. When I was 16, my first boyfriend left me a voicemail breaking up because I'd ruined the vibe by asking if he could pay for movie tickets once. I remember sitting in my mom's Honda, frozen, listening to him say, "You're kinda intense about money," while I was literally juggling shifts at a grocery store to buy gas. You'd think I'd have learned back then not to mistake dependence for intimacy. But love has this sick talent for disguising old wounds as new beginnings. Brad wasn't my first freeloader, just the most refined. Now, here I was, 4 weeks post-accident, with a cast I'd started decorating like a protest sign and a best friend who kept saying, "You're glowing with vengeance." And yet, the most infuriating part wasn't Brad's betrayal. It was the story he started telling everyone. That I had controlled his finances. That I had isolated him from his friends and micromanaged him into burnout. That I'd destroyed his property out of bitterness. Even his mother, Carla, started parroting it. "He told me you tracked his purchases and wouldn't let him see his friends." I almost popped a rib laughing. This is the man who once spent our rent money on a $900 gaming keyboard. Because it had programmable macros. The same guy who told me he was going to invest in crypto, but used my credit card to buy a hoodie that lights up. I didn't hang up on Carla. I wanted her to hear everything. I told her I'd spent $174,000 over 4 years covering rent, groceries, car repairs, Wi-Fi, utilities, all of it. I told her about the extra jobs I took, the sleepless nights I worked while Brad streamed Fortnite and swore he was making connections. I told her how I pawned my grandmother's bracelet last winter to pay off Brad's surprise overdraft fees. She went quiet. Then, with a voice that cracked like old paint, she said, "But, he told us he's been supporting you. That you lost your job." I've had the same job for 6 years. With promotions. benefits. A 401k. I just hadn't told them, because Brad didn't want them to feel emasculated. He wanted to be the provider. What he provided was lies. And debt. Because here's the twist. Brad hadn't just drained me emotionally. He'd opened 3 joint credit accounts in my name over the years to help build his score. I found out while reviewing my finances with my cousin Rachel, who happens to be a forensic accountant. So far, we've traced at least $12,800 directly to Brad. Purchases I never made, subscriptions I never signed up for, gaming bundles in the middle of the night, Uber Eats charges at restaurants I've never visited. I didn't just collect screenshots for fun. I sent a detailed packet to the hiring manager from the firm that rescinded his job offer. I also sent it to Carla. And to Brad's cousin, who co-signed his last apartment lease before he moved in with me. And then something unexpected happened. Lauren, yes, that Lauren, messaged me. She'd seen the social media fallout. She said, "I had no idea you were in the hospital. Brad told me you two split months ago. He said you kicked him out?" She apologized and offered to send screenshots of their DMs. I declined the screenshots. Didn't need more rot in my system. But I thanked her for confirming what I'd long suspected. Brad had been recruiting a backup plan the moment I got injured. And here's the cherry, remember how I mentioned I helped him land that job interview? The company wasn't just any firm. It handled retirement portfolios. Brad, who once overdrafted his account buying 2 versions of the same game by accident, would have been managing someone's life savings. Not anymore. I haven't heard from him directly since I texted. The compost bin is where our relationship belongs. But the voicemails haven't stopped. He's now in the apologetic epiphany stage. "I'm reflecting, I'm growing, you're the only one who ever loved me." Meanwhile, I'm on Zillow with Zoe, looking at apartments with sunlight and hardwood floors and 0 gaming chairs. Tomorrow, I get my casts removed. And next week, I close my joint credit cards. You ever feel yourself rise from your own ashes? That's what this feels like. Zoe and I were knee-deep in apartment listings. Sunlight, yes. Gaming chairs, hell no. When her doorman called up with a delivery for me. We weren't expecting anything. No online orders, no flowers, not even a sympathy cookie basket. 5 minutes later, Zoe returned with a look on her face like she just witnessed a crime. Behind her? A plastic compost bin. Like an actual container full of dirt, worms, and what appeared to be rotting banana peels. Nestled among the mush, a velvet ring box. Covered in actual compost. Inside? A cheap ring that looked like it came from a mall kiosk in 2006. The fake gold was already oxidizing just from my holding it. The diamond was a cloudy plastic orb, the kind that turns your finger green within hours. Engraved inside the band was a date I didn't recognize at first, until I realized it was Lauren's birthday. He sent me a recycled ring. In a bucket of decaying trash. On top of that compost mountain sat a handwritten note. "Like compost, our love can break down and grow into something new. I'm becoming the man you deserve. Let's grow together." Brad, the compost king, actually thought worms and metaphors would bring me back. Zoe doubled over laughing so hard I had to take extra painkillers for my ribs. She took a photo of me holding the bin like a cursed artifact, posted it to her Instagram story, tagged me, not him, and captioned it. "When your BFF's ex thinks decomposing garbage is romantic." But we weren't done. Inside the bin, yes, inside the dirt, I found a printed poem. He wrote a poem. About fertilizer. It rhymed. I didn't text him. I didn't call. I sent one message. "The compost bin is exactly where our relationship belongs." Zoe walked the entire bin down to the dumpster behind her building and filmed herself dumping it out. She sent that to Brad. Later that night, I got an email from his mother Carla. Subject line: "I've been thinking." She'd received the packet I sent. The receipts. The credit card fraud details. The screenshots from his Instagram stories where he bragged about working the system, and said I was Just another free apartment with a heartbeat. The email started with denial. There must be some mistake. Then anger. How dare you make my son look like this? Then bargaining. If there were financial issues, why didn't you come to me? Then the one I didn't expect, regret. I owe you an apology. I didn't know the full picture. I see it now. I've been enabling him for years. Then she called. She told me everything. That Brad had claimed the apartment was his. That I was an unstable wreck who couldn't hold a job. That he let me live there out of pity. And the kicker? He said my car, the one totaled in the crash, was his. That he was graciously letting me use it. He's been spinning lies to his family like bedtime stories. And they bought it, every single time. Until now. Because Carla confessed something that made my heart stop. Over the last 2 years, she's given Brad more than $145,000. For what she thought were emergencies. She wired him money for rent he never paid. For medical bills that never existed. For job interviews he never went to. She's mortgaged part of her retirement for him. And now she's not just embarrassed. She's furious. He needs to face consequences for once in his life. I won't be bailing him out again. Progress. Real progress. But we're not done. Because remember those joint credit cards? Turns out, Brad didn't just use them for pizza and gaming headsets. He used one to buy airfare, a ticket to Miami, taken during the week I was recovering from surgery. And I have proof. And so does his mother. The last text Brad ever sent me read, "You're ruining my life. I have nowhere to go. My mom won't even let me crash anymore. I'm sleeping in my car." He didn't have a car. It had been repossessed 3 months earlier while he pretended to research hybrids. And yet, even as he slipped deeper into the quicksand of his own consequences, I couldn't look away. Because part of me, some loyal, trauma-bonded inner Girl Scout, still wanted to make sure he didn't actually spiral into something dangerous. So when he left that voicemail, "if you don't call me back, I might do something desperate," I called in a wellness check. Just in case. The police found him at Remy's place, his old college roommate. Emotional but fine. Remy texted me later. FYI, he's not staying here anymore. He stole $200 from my wallet. I changed the locks. That's when I stopped worrying. Brad wasn't lost. He was consistent. Consistently manipulative. Consistently parasitic. Consistently selfish. But karma had its own timing. 3 days later, Brad tried to launch a GoFundMe titled, "Homeless After Girlfriend's Revenge." The sob story read like a bad screenplay. I supposedly threw out his priceless family heirlooms, drained his bank account, and kicked him out, over a misunderstanding. He even uploaded sad selfies from what was obviously Remy's old couch. It lasted 6 hours. Zoe, my brother Jeremy, and half our mutuals flooded it with links to the real story. Screenshots. Receipts. My Reddit post. Public record of the job loss. The lies. The fraud. Then it was gone. Reported for fraud. Deleted. That's when Brad lost it. He showed up at my old apartment and tried to force his way in. The neighbors, God bless them, called the police. The landlord, Mr. Gilroy, refused to unlock the door and presented the lease paperwork on the spot. Brad ranted about defamation and illegal eviction. Then the police ran his name. Turns out, he had an outstanding warrant for $1,200 in unpaid traffic tickets. Yes. Brad got arrested. Not for the harassment. Not for the fraud. But for traffic tickets. 2 nights in jail. Released only when his brother, not his mom, bailed him out. Carla? She was done. A week later, I moved into my new apartment. Smaller, but cozy. The balcony gets sun all morning and I've started a little herb garden, basil, rosemary, and a tomato vine I named Closure. I got my cast off early. My leg works. My heart, surprisingly, does too. But the closure didn't come from his downfall. It came from Carla. She invited me to lunch. A quiet, wheelchair-accessible cafe with vegan wraps and lavender lemonade. She apologized, again, and confessed that she'd spent the last 2 decades making excuses for Brad's behavior. His father was similar. She thought shielding Brad from consequences was love. Then she handed me an envelope. This doesn't cover what you've lost. But it's what I can do right now. Inside, $2,000 in crisp bills. This isn't from Brad, she said. It's from me. Because if I raised someone who could treat you like that, then I failed somewhere. And I want you to be able to start clean. I tried to refuse. She insisted. I used it to furnish my new place. A fresh couch. A second-hand dining set. Dishes that didn't remind me of late-night takeout while Brad gamed for 12 hours straight. And then the silence came. Not just the absence of Brad's calls or texts, but the peace of waking up without dread. Of knowing I didn't have to check the bank balance before buying shampoo. Of opening my laptop without worrying if he'd maxed out another account. I even started therapy. My therapist, shout out to insurance, helped me face something I hadn't wanted to admit. I stayed with Brad because fixing him made me feel useful. Because being someone's lifeline made me feel irreplaceable. Because I was scared that without a broken person to patch up, I'd have no purpose. But you know what? I have purpose now. And it's me. I bloom better without weeds choking the roots.